Hey there, I'm Lou Cirillo, Head of Business Development at Pine & Peak Studio, and today we're going to talk about the cost to build an Avrame kit home here in Fairplay, Colorado. This is a request that we get pretty often. A lot of people see these online because they're beautiful, they've got great marketing and advertising, and they want to know, well, what does it actually cost to build end to end? Today, I'm going to go through line by line by line that quote. I'm going to tell you down to the fees, everything that you probably wouldn't hear from most general contractors. So that way we can tell you exactly what it costs, exactly how much our margin is, and so that way you know if this kit is right for you. But first, let's start by talking about what Avrame is. So I've pulled up their website here. Avrame is a kit home company for A-frame designed homes. What that means is they provide you the plans, they provide you the engineering specifications, and structural kit components, or literally every material you need to build the house in the plans. You can do all of that process with them. And just for reference, we are not supported by Avrame. We have just had the opportunity to work on some and to quote them as a builder. So we're on their website here, and what you can kind of see is just the whole process. They'll talk about the kit, the fabrication, and no doubt if you were a DIYer, this would be like a great option because they remove a lot of the effort in creating the structure from your process. So for this today, we're actually going to be talking about the Avrame Trio. And specifically, we did a quote on this 900 square foot model. Our clients did ask that we add a little bit of space. I think we added a few feet here or there. So the total finished square footage of their project was a little over 1,000. And we did updo a few other things. So in this case, we also quoted based upon what they call the American window wall, and we added 2 dormers. So let's start by going in. The first thing we call is category 1, and that is general conditions. And in this case, we talk about a portable toilet, a porta potty, and flushing that during the course of the project. You want to give your workers and your subcontractors a place to go to the bathroom. Blueprints and office supplies, this is just a budget that we throw in there for potentially having to print bigger form documents, and we do that pretty regularly, and we have multiple copies usually for people on the site to mark up and to look at and everything else. And last but not least, if you're in an area like here up in Fairplay, Colorado, you can expect to have about 6 months worth of snow removal. We don't stop working on homes just because the winter is hit. Our goal, generally speaking, is to build, get the house closed in before the snow flies, and then try to finish up a lot of the interior work throughout the winter. So in this case, we've put a total budget of $5,900 for that. This is based on costs we've seen from other projects, so we can move through it. The next thing is what we're going to call site work. And site work has a lot of different elements in here. So the first is lot clearing. You'll note in here that this is not separated out, as this is included in our excavation quote below. And this particular client has actually already done some lot clearing on the site where they're at. So we really are only anticipating having to remove a few trees. However, you can expect site clearing and tree removal to range pretty broadly speaking. We've seen, up to $8,000 or $9,000 depending on how treed your area is and how big your driveway is. So just expect this is a variable cost. Next thing is dumpster fees. We do like to keep our sites neat and organized, and expect that as a general contractor, we're going to have dumpsters to haul off waste materials, and we want to make sure that we have enough of that throughout the course of the project. In this case, this accounts for 6 full loads of a large roll-off dumpster at $900 a load based upon quotes that we've had before. Next thing is excavation, backfill, and final grading. So this is going to include digging your footers, digging the excavation, backfilling inside of those footers, and then eventually at the end of the project, finally shaping down the grade around the house, and also backfilling against different areas of the project as needed. This is a quote by a subcontractor that we've used for $14,000. This is a labor-only quote for this particular project, which means that in our case, we will rent the machine and bring in the labor. And that has some advantages and disadvantages. In this particular case, we wanted to get a particular size machine, one that wasn't too big or too small. However, that being said, at Pine & Peak Studio, we've actually recently invested in our own excavation equipment, so that price will still be factored in, but in a slightly different way. So this means insofar your excavation is going to be about $22,694 in this particular quote. This will range depending on the site. So I've seen quotes as low as $10,000 and I've seen them as high as $121,000. The key thing here is just how complex your site is, how graded it is, what we need to do to get the foundation in there. The next is going to be well drilling. So in this case, based upon the depth of wells around it, we're able to estimate that it would be roughly $20,000 to dig the well on this particular site. The next thing we're going to call is well supplies. This is going to be, so the well driller comes in and drills the hole and puts the casing in. Then you need somebody else to come in and put the pump in with the pipe and then connect that into the house and through the whole system. So part of excavation will be digging that trench and running that line. That's pretty simple to do once you have equipment on site, which is great. But then your well pump, the rest of the supplies for that well, we anticipate being about $5,500 for this project. Now it is key that you know for a well, you may need to have different filtration systems, and this is all going to be done based upon a water analysis. And up here, wells can go dry during part of the year, so we are recommending that a large amount of our homes place in a cistern. Next quote down here is septic and leach field. There's no septic design yet for this particular home. However, based upon similar projects and other quotes in the area, we anticipate this being around $25,000. And finally is going to be our connection to Excel, which is the electric provider up here. So if you'll notice on this quote already, just in site work, we're at $81,594. Now, that is significant, and what you're going to realize is that the smaller the home, the bigger the percentage the site work is comparative to the square footage. So when people are like, why is the cost to build a small home more on a per square foot basis? That's why. It's going down. We're going to talk about concrete. Now, like I said, we as a general contractor, when we do full line item bids, we literally mean line item. We go down to the exact cubic yard of concrete that you are going to need for this project. So in total, the foundation is $43,462, and you can kind of come through here and look at the different sub items that make up this. First is the cubic yards of concrete. In this house, this is going to be a crawl space. So in this case, you're going to see concrete at $210 a cubic yard. This is based on local numbers. And then you'll see a concrete pump. This is a pump truck. So the concrete truck's going to back in. They're going to back into the pump truck. They're going to feed the concrete into that, and we are going to then pump it to where it needs to go using a very, very long hose that's basically on a crane. Next thing you're going to see are the ICF blocks themselves. These are the insulated concrete forms, also known as Fox blocks. We picked them up locally here, and we've done a few projects with them and really like them. Inside of your concrete Fox blocks, you're going to have to put a certain amount of rebar. So we do have rebar priced in here as well based upon the foundation design. Then you have your form work, how many boards you need to do your forms for your footers, your anchor bolts. This case also includes deck footing concrete. So when you put your deck in, you're going to want to put your footers down as well, and the other formwork that we'll need in there as well. So finally in here we have labor. This is a quote that we've gotten directly from a subcontractor for this particular project, which is going to be $25,000. And we have another quote for the flat work, which would be entrances. If you wanted to have a concrete pad to step on to go up into the house, that's another $3,000. So the cumulative total for all of your concrete work for this particular project is $46,512. As we kind of go down, we're going to start talking about the next step. In this case, masonry. For this particular project, we're not doing any exterior stone work or anything like that. So the only masonry will be the countertops with install. One of the people we work with just charges on a per square foot basis for this. So we just multiply it out and boom, there we go. $3,400 to get your nice granite or corian or any other type of countertop that you would like to have installed. Next piece here is island support brackets, just simple line item depending on how we're anchoring the island in. Going down, we are going to talk about wood and plastics. And as we go into this, it's important to note that for the sake of this quote, we did price utilizing the Avrame structural kit. We got the base number off of their website, And this has not been adjusted by Avrame to account for snow loads. So we could expect that there is more cost in here. And we are self-supplying the material for the dormers, which I know that they will supply, but as we were not working with Avrame to get this together, we built the estimates based upon our experience as general contractor. So going into it, we're going to start with the interior crawl space wall framing materials, small item. Next thing, if we expand this, we're going to look at the floor framing materials. And this is a pretty critical thing to note, that Avrame does include the floor joists, but they do not include the mud sills, rim joists, or subfloor sheathing. That all has to be supplied. So one of the things to note about these kits is sometimes they come with a lot and sometimes they don't come with absolutely everything you need, and you need to source it locally. The next piece down here, the structural framing kit from Avrame, $45,725. We do, as a builder, like speaking with lumber yards and kind of having a sense for what materials cost, estimate that there's a roughly $20,000 markup on that Avrame kit, and that's going to be the cost to pre-cut the lumber, to have it transported here, and the cost for the architecture and a few other fees rolled into it. So for people who think, oh yeah, we got the architecture plans for free, you kind of don't. They're just rolled into different parts of the kit. We have below that the additional dormer lumber. So this is to build 2 dormers. Going below, we have mudroom trusses. These would be fabricated at a truss shop, brought in, and then installed with the project. We can go into some more details on the loft floor framing. This is just to build the loft up there. And what is worth it to note with the Avrame kits is that does not include any interior framing materials. So you're still going to need to get your 2x4s and your studs and everything else that you need to frame out the interior of the home. After that, we're going to talk about the framing material. So this is those studs that I just mentioned. So when we do our quotes, we're down to the exact board foot. We know exactly how much we need based upon the plans. So we've done the full estimates out here. I'm going to go down and I want to talk a little bit about the zip wall sheathing. So this is not an absolute requirement, but it's one of the things that we do like using up here at high altitude. So zip wall sheathing is, obviously it's a type of sheathing, but it has some level of rigid insulation on it. And the goal with this is that you can put that down on the decking and then spray foam and things underneath. And that gives you a very good R value and a very tight seal for creating your home. It is not a requirement, but we do recommend to our clients that they do the zip wall sheathing and the zip tape, which we tape every single seam on the house, and that helps the house become airtight so that we can move air when we want to and how we want to with the house. Below that, we can jump in and go more into the wood siding materials. In this case, we are speccing Hardy board, which is a cheaper fiber cement product. You can go just about any direction with it. And this is one of those items we would call elective. So when we talk about the cost of a home, realistically about 60% is going to be in the structural components and 40% is in the owner elective portions. And that's everything from the windows you choose to the type of siding, the type of interior finishes that you have inside of the house. And this would be the first one that you would really want to deal with. It's like, well, if you wanted to do a standing seam siding, that's going to be much more expensive. We have our fascias and soffits. So these are boards that go around the home. And ultimately we get down into some of the biggest parts of here, which is your framing labor. For this particular project, the framing labor is $22,500. This was based on a quote from one of the local framers that we've worked with. Next, we have the wood decking materials. And in this case, we've given an allowance at $20 a square foot. That would be for a Trex type material. Given that these owners have younger kids, we thought that it would be better to spec this instead of risking splinters and letting people be out there really comfortably. You're going to have your deck framing materials, your exterior guardrail. This is a cable guardrail kit that you can purchase online. It looks great, and for this particular project, it's going to be about $4,000. Next, we have interior trim. So this is going to be all of the wood that goes around your doorways and everything inside of your house to make it have a nice, complete feel. There's a trim and millwork labor cost. We work with an individual who does it by the hour, $70 an hour. And this was the estimate based upon working with him. Finally, we're going to do kitchen cabinets, kitchen hardware, and bathroom vanities. This is an area, like I said, that has another big degree of flexibility. You can go with very cheap kitchen cabinets. In this case, we were thinking more IKEA range. So this would be like an IKEA based kitchen, which are very nice in my opinion, and do very well for the cost that they are. So you can do custom fronts for IKEA cabinets, but the total cost in here as an allowance is about $7,000. And this would be included in some of the other millwork labor to get it installed. And finally, bathroom vanity is just an allowance. You can pre-buy these pre-done and have them installed. So this brings us to a total of all of the woodwork related in the home, including the labor, at $134,000. And this will also include your window installation. All right, then we're going to go to thermal and moisture. So this is where we start talking about things like insulation. So foundation wall waterproofing. So when you do Fox blocks, it is good form to put a waterproofing material on the outside that gets rolled on there. The next is the foundation drainage mat. This is also so we can put a pipe system in to remove water away from the foundation and prevent any erosion that goes through. So you can see all of the raw materials for that. And finally is going to be a category for backfill gravel. So when you disturb the land or when you are backfilling certain things, you need to bring in a certain type of engineered fill in order to make sure that the home is built structurally sound. So we have an allowance in there for backfill gravel. Being up here in the mountains, one of the other things we have to deal with is the radon system. So a radon system is going to help remove radon from the foundation crawl space area of the home. We will do some testing with homes that are existing, but if you don't know, it's usually good to kind of spec it in when you're already doing the work down there. And that way you can put a passive system in, and if you get tested and we need to convert it to an active system, that's an easier way to do it. Spray foam insulation is probably the largest item in this particular category. And there's a reason that we recommend it. Given the altitude where we're at, we have particular R value requirements that we have to have in the ceiling and ones that we have to have in the walls. In order to do a standard bat insulation, you'd have to make the walls massively thick to achieve that code number. And in this case, with a few inches of spray foam and that zip R sheathing, we're able to make a nice, tighter, denser packed package. And in this case, we're also recommending that this be what is considered a hot roof design or an unventilated roof. Particularly up here, since it's very cold, one of the things we have to think about is condensation, which means that water and moisture, as it goes through the house, it can pass through certain layers of insulation and condensate on the back sides of the sheathing and then cause a lot of water damage. As a result, we've been really recommending a lot of people go to a spray foam closed cell system to prevent that moisture from ever hitting a surface where it can condensate. And that's one of the reasons we go with this. And particularly if you're going to build a vented roof structure, what you'll find is the materials and labor will more often than not be very close to the spray foam in terms of overall cost, but with less overall energy performance. Below that, we have metal roofing for this home. This is just going to be a standard fastened metal roofing. This is not standing seam. So for the number of square footage required for that, it's about $12,000. That is one of the kickers with an A-frame, right? Is that your roof is your walls and your walls are your roof. There's some benefits and disadvantages. One is that you now have more roof structure that you need to cover compared to a house that might be 2 stories or 3 stories tall. The next piece is the roofing labor. This is a quote from one of our subcontractors at $9,600. You'll see in some cases on the left and right, we do put specific material amounts or per square foot cost. And that's either A, because we are getting a bid from the contractor that is done on a per square foot basis, or because that's how we're tracking the cost of the materials. We're going to finish out with gutters, downspouts, bath and shower pans, for a total category cost for thermal and moisture of $50,650. Moving on, we're going to talk about windows and doors. So in this, what's important to note is that your windows, that's another really big cost center for the house. If you want high performance, really efficient windows that are good, that have great R value, you can really expect to spend a lot of money. This brand Windsor windows is kind of on the middle upper end of windows. And given that huge lintel wall that the clients would expect, you can expect to put a lot of money in your windows based on that. In addition, we've got skylights. If they wanted skylights, and they did in a couple of general areas. We have our interior wood doors. This is done at an allowance. You can go and buy cheap $150 doors, and you can buy doors that are a couple of thousands of dollars. Last but not least is the shower enclosure for this home. And so your doors and window total for this, $37,920. Now, it is important to note you can go cheaper on some of these things, but since this is a kit and we are talking about it as a kit home, the important thing to remember here is that kit or not, this is still being built like any other custom home. So for this particular home, one of the things that we've done is spec the inside to be finished with tongue and groove. There is a cost to that both for staining and install as well as the material itself. In short, you can look at that and say, yeah, putting that up on the ceiling in that A-frame and coating it in there, which will make it look great, is a $17,000 upgrade, right? But drywall still has some cost as well. And when we compare to drywall, usually we see that the tongue and groove is only a couple of dollars more expensive. There's only a couple of dollars more expensive per square foot. We have kitchen tile backsplash on a per square footage basis based upon the plans. Bathroom floor tile and bathroom wall tile to make a nice looking bathroom inside of the home. As well as we're going to get into the wood flooring. In this case, we were kind of thinking middle of the road LVP or luxury vinyl plank. Since this house is going to be used both by the owners and as a rental, we like the durability that comes with that particular product. Next thing is the flooring install. So this is a quote by our subcontractor who charges on the per square foot basis to install. We do have a drywall quote as well. This would be finishing out the bedrooms and every other space that is not covered by the tongue and groove. And finally, your painting and exterior staining quotes, giving us a grand total for your finishes at $66,755. Now, like I said, just because you buy the Avrame kit, that doesn't change any of this. You're still going to have to do your local labor rates or your DIYing yourself. And finally, we're going to get into specialties. So specialty items would be like your wood stove. In this particular case, we have an allowance here of roughly $6,000. Now you can go online and you will see a stove and it'll say $1,500, $2,000. And you might think, Lewis, you're crazy. Why is it $6,000? Well, this includes all of the equipment needed for the chimney. So you need to buy all of your stacking for the chimney and your chimney vent as well. And that's going to go into that cost. Next is going to be the installation for that. And that includes putting it through the ceiling. Finally, we have a category for bathroom accessories. And this is going to be things like your toilet paper holders or your towel racks, things of that nature you need to kit out your bathroom. We have a blank here for equipment. And the equipment line, in this case, appliances, those are usually supplied by the owner so they can go and buy them at any store or thing that they want. Finally, we're going to talk about mechanical and plumbing as well as your electrical. So starting out for this home, which I believe is just a one bathroom home, but including all of your fixtures and everything that you need to do to plumb the house, it's going to be roughly $6,000 based upon a quote by a local subcontractor that we've used. The plumbing fixtures, we've given a $4,000 allowance. This is something that you can go all over the board with. You can get very cheap fixtures from Home Depot and you can go very expensive customized features from like Waterworks. So I would say this is a good middle upper category here for this house to make sure that they have really good quality fixtures across. And this is your kitchen sink and everything else. We've got plumbing trim install. This is also a quote from the same subcontractor. For this particular home, given the client's budget constraints and that we are at high altitude, cooling is not really something we really need to think about. So it really is just heating. And in this case, we just said to help save them some money, we're just going to put in baseboard heaters. And given that the house is going to be built incredibly efficiently with good quality windows, spray foam insulation, and potentially an ERV system, this would be a good way to kind of be middle of the road on your thermal performance. It's not going to be as cost effective as a natural gas or product, but unfortunately, there's no natural gas at this house. There's only electric or propane if you want to bring a propane tank in and have that plumbed and connected to the house. But in order to save the client money, we said, if you're willing to go with it, just do baseboards. Baseboards are very cheap. If they did want to do an electric mini split system, which we've used in some other projects, and I highly recommend the heat pump mini split, you're looking at a roughly $15,000 add-on for that. Then next but not least, we have heat mats in the bathroom. Just everybody likes warm bathroom floors. This is a great way to kind of put that in. If you are doing just the baseboard heaters, then it is a nice upgrade to a bathroom and it doesn't cost that much to do it. We do spec smart thermostats for the brand that I like for baseboard heaters is called Misa, and they make some that also work for the bathroom heat mats as well. So it's a really good product and they're relatively cost effective compared to other products on the market. Rough electrical plumbing, $23,000 for that and a $5,000 allowance for all of your fixtures and trim, bringing that category to a total of $28,000. So now let's talk about totals. The subtotal for everything in the category above was $483,955. It is important to note that our firm is what we call a cost plus builder, which means that we're going to take all of those costs and we're going to add on our general contractor's overhead and profit. What we do recommend is that all of our clients have a 10% contingency. Next is going to be GC overhead. This is all of our costs related to ensuring that the business runs smoothly, that your project runs smoothly. This is additional fees that we incur to be on site. So you have 8% for that. And finally, general contractor profit at $53,258. And that would be only at that height if you use the regular budget and the contingency that go in together for a total project cost of $628,174. So that's how much it's going to cost you to build an Avrame Trio 75 1,100 square foot kit home with 2 dormers and the American window wall here in Fairplay, Colorado. So if you have any additional questions about building, if you're located in this area and you want to have a conversation, want us to take a look at your project, we'd be happy to. Part of the thing that we do recommend as some general conclusions on this is with a kit home, the devil is really in the details. If you go and look, Avrame does have some extra costs if you want to upgrade or change things, and they have some associated architecture costs. There are some more fees associated with it, but at the end of the day, you're building a custom home. So unless you absolutely love everything about the Avrame, you love the floor plan, you love the design, then go for it. But if you are feeling like you have to make changes and you feel like it doesn't fully meet your needs, that's the time that it's worth talking to an architect, because you're paying for architecture fees in that kit and in that process, and you can pull that out and have somebody design you something custom. And in this particular case, that was one of the recommendations that we had is like, if you were going to go this direction, unless you absolutely love the product, then you should go custom, because everything else about this house is custom. Everything is built in line with how we would build any other custom home where we do the drawings or we bring in drawings from another architect. So as a result, it's a really important thing for you to consider if this truly meets your need. And if you're curious why, you'll probably find on some other things, builders say, hey, we don't, particularly like kits and the like. The main reason is because generally speaking, people think there's going to be a lot of cost efficiency that they're going to get from the Avrame, from a kit. And the answer is that there is if you're the one building it. But if you're hiring somebody to build that home, we look at that and say, well, the framers have their methods on how they like to frame. To change it over to doing this method, even though it may be easier or not, there is some cost associated with it. And more often than not, the framer, like in this case, said, hey, I charge $15 a square foot to frame, and that's what it is. He doesn't care whether it's an Avrame kit or not. The roofer doesn't care whether it's a kit or not. The window installer doesn't care. So that's why we always make that recommendation that unless you're really a DIYer and you really, really, really love the floor plan, go custom, have something built exactly for your needs, and take it from there. Thanks for your time. I hope you all found this informative, and looking forward to catching you up on the next one. We're hoping to do more of these detailed walkthroughs on projects that we take on so we can give people a true understanding of what it does cost to build, not only in this area, but in general. Materials and labor are going to fluctuate based upon the geographic region that you're in, but if you are building up in the mountains, you can expect that these costs might be relatively similar based upon where you're at. Thanks for your time.